Hey everyone, it is Pastor MP here again with our Wednesday edition of the St. Mark Spark. Today is March 31st. It is the last day of March. If you can believe that, we're already into April tomorrow. The year has gone quickly. We only have 3 more days in our church-wide reading of 40 days of the gospel. Today we are in John. We're in John chapters 15 and 16, and I'm going to read a portion of chapter 15 and then end at the end of this with a verse at the end of chapter 16. And then we're going to talk a little bit about my thoughts today. So listen now and hear the word of the Lord and how it speaks to you in John chapter 15, verses 1 through 7. Again, I'm going to be reading from the Inclusive Bible, so language may sound a little bit different. Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Abba is the vine grower who cuts off every branch in me that doesn't bear fruit, but prunes the fruitless ones to increase their yield. You've been pruned already, thanks to the word that I have spoken to you. Live on in me, as I do in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself apart from the vine, neither can you bear fruit apart from me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Those who live in me and I in them will bear abundant fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Those who don't live in me are like withered, rejected branches, to be picked up and thrown on the fire and burned. If you live on in me, and my words live on in you, ask whatever you want, and it will be done for you." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, when I read this again today, it reminded me of a time about, 6 or 7 years ago when my mom was still living then, and I was visiting her in her room at the nursing facility where she was taking residence. And my mom had multiple problems. She was a type 2 diabetic and had suffered that for, her more years than she had not suffered it. 40 years, in fact. She suffered the effects and the results of type 2 diabetes. But one of the things that she suffered was the loss of her eyesight. She had macular degeneration and all sorts of other issues with her eyes that slowly took her sight away to where she really couldn't see and was legally blind. And upon one visit to her, she brought up this verse, or the idea of this verse in John, where Jesus says, "If you believe in me, ask anything in my name, and I will grant it to you." And she couldn't understand why she had prayed and asked for her eyesight back, and God had not granted her that prayer request. And I really didn't have an answer for my mom. And I suspect that probably most of us would not have an answer. It was comforting to my mom just for me to be there and for her to be able to express her confusion about what this meant. And it makes me think about our general confusion about the Bible and about Jesus and about our whole faith in some ways can be very confusing at times. And we're entering a time this week in Holy Week where the disciples were obviously confused when Jesus died and was placed in the tomb on Friday night. Confused about where their Savior had gone. They obviously saw or had witnesses tell them that he had died and been buried in the tomb. They assumed that he was going to be this Messiah who would save the world, who would conquer their enemies in real ways, real tangible ways, maybe mounted on a horse with armor and swords and an army behind him. And despite Jesus trying to explain it to them, they just didn't get it. and it was confusing to them. And I'm sure they were despondent and distraught, and they didn't know what to do. And they wondered, God, we prayed for this thing, and you did not answer it. When we believed, how is it that Jesus was not the one? How is it this prayer did not get granted? No, I didn't have an answer for my mom. And though she is in heaven, she is in the afterlife, she is with Jesus now, maybe it doesn't matter. She's been restored to her full physical capabilities and has her sight back. Yet it still leaves all of us a bit confused when we read things like this in the Bible. Jesus spoke in veiled language a lot of times, and in this long stretched out passage section starting in somewhere like chapter 14 and going all the way to the end of 17, he's talking a lot. And he basically is trying to explain to the disciples what's going to happen, and again reviewing why he came to be with them, and they're just not getting it. Oftentimes we can get stuck on a verse. And this verse my mom was stuck on. Ask anything in my name, and it shall be granted to you. And I'm not judging Mom. We all do it. We all cherry pick. We all get stuck on a word or a phrase or a thought. We think that we're right, or we think, how could we think about anything else if this one thing does not make sense? And yet Jesus tells us that if we get stuck on a word or a phrase, something written even in the Bible, just a part of it, that we miss the greater point. I'm going to read to you in closing here John chapter 16, verse 33, where Jesus says, after this long section, Jesus says, I have told you all of this, that in me you may find peace. You will suffer in this world, but take courage. I have overcome the world. The greater point, I think, is that Jesus says, have peace in me. Not in a word, not in a promise that you think you find in here that you don't understand. To have peace in Jesus. Jesus alone is our Savior. Jesus alone is our peace. So with that, I grant you peace this day. I grant you peace through the Holy Week. Join us Thursday at 7, Friday at 3, Saturday at 1, and this Sunday at 9 and 10 for our Holy Week services. Miss you. I'm praying for you, and we'll see you soon.